Hello, heroes, and welcome to our next Heroes podcast. I'm Katie Kelly, and on our Heroes podcast, we speak to inspiring women across many different fields, from business to charity to fashion to many, many others. We learn about their journeys to achieve all of the great things they have and the support network of other heroes that inspire them as well. So I'd just like to say hello to Lea Henry, who is the star of today's show. Hello, Lea.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Can I just say I'm a new listener to the podcast, but I've really enjoyed it. It's been really inspirational for me. So I'm really honored to be here. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It's an honour to have you. Thank you for agreeing to be one of my first guests of 2022.
Of course.
So to kick us off, today is about you. Do you just want to start off by telling us a bit about you and CocoRio as well, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So hello, I am Lea, and I run CoCareer Creative Childcare. So what we do is we match creative professionals with families for smarter childcare arrangements. So basically what this means is that we send creative professionals to the home as nannies and babysitters. They look after the kids as a regular nanny would, but then they're also sharing their creative expertise. So we've got incredible talent on our books, so from musicians to dancers, actors. We also have some more niche expertises like puppeteers, mask makers, costume makers, all sorts. It's good fun. And so the idea here is that they're going in to provide a valuable experience for the child, offering activities that are great for their development, offering families a really flexible alternative. Often it's coupled with they might already have their kids in nursery or have a nanny, but they want to sort of cover a few hours here and there. And then on the flip side, we're also offering part-time employment for creative professionals who often do need sort of freelance work alongside their creative careers. So this is what we offer them essentially. So a meaningful part-time work, sort of as opposed to potentially retail or bar work. This is something within their expertise and sort of using their skill set essentially. And it's really rewarding. I used to be a creative sitter, and I'll get onto that later, but it was wonderful. So really, really happy about the work we're doing there. A bit about me personally, I have a background in music. I'm a classical singer, though I haven't sung for very long. Although, well, I do sing lullabies for my little one. But yeah, I haven't sang professionally for very long.
You'll be shocked at the end of the interview when I ask you to give us a tune then, won't you?
Oh, no, I'm not prepared for that. Not prepared. But yeah, I suppose another interesting thing about me is, so I'm half from France and half from Madagascar, but I grew up in Tanzania. That's where I've lived most of my life and moved to the UK to study, and I'm now here with my family and running my business essentially.
Thank you. Well, that's it seems whenever anyone explains why they came up with the idea for their business or what's behind their business, it always seems like, of course we need flexible childcare solutions and everybody wants everything on demand. So it all completely makes sense. We all want everything at the click of our fingers now, don't we? Whether it's cabs, food, and of course that applies to childcare as well. And as you say, it's flexible workers, freelance workers, etc. Everybody's moved. Well, I say everybody. Some people are moving more in that direction. The pandemic's only compounded that and made it kind of skyrocket, and the need for that and flexible working, etc. So it seems like you've hit the sweet spot. What's happening in CocoRio at the moment? Is it what's next?
Yeah, it's a really exciting phase at the moment. We've just launched our next fundraising round, so we're currently looking for some lead angel investors, and we're hoping to then open it as a crowd fund. It feels very CocoRio to sort of share the business with our community and to sort of allow our families to own part of it, our sitters to own part of it, and just anyone who really feels in tune with the mission. So this is really exciting, and basically we're doing all of this to build an app to do exactly what you were just saying, really meet that demand of actually having childcare at your fingertips. At the moment it's a very tailored approach, very manual, which is great and families love it, but we do want to have that option of a busy mom on the go being like, oh, I need a sitter for Friday afternoon, and it's done. So that's where we're headed basically. So yeah, very, very exciting times, very busy times as well. It's crazy, love it.
Yeah, good. Well, very exciting. Well, I know nothing about fundraising for businesses. I'm very much still in the corporate world. What's the process of fundraising? I've heard it can be quite stressful, obviously very time consuming if you're pitching. I'm not sure whether that's what you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit about what it involves?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I'm a pro just yet. We have had one fundraising round, but this was sort of a friends and family round. So arguably probably easier because it's people who already know you, who already believe in you personally. And it's almost more to do with the founders than the business itself. Though, of course, you do have some belief. But sort of this next round is very much... it's less of that sort of friendly bubbly. It's
more of the boardroom, and
let's really get down. We've decided to go the angel route, so we're not looking at VCs at the moment, which tends to be they tend to have a very sort of clear process as to how it's done, whereas with angel investing, it very much depends on the angel. So you want to go for coffee and discuss, or you want to have a board meeting scenario. It depends on who you're actually chatting to and who you want to join you on the journey basically. So it's quite a daunting process on the one hand, because you do want to, of course you want their money, but equally you need to have somebody who's really going to sort of fit with your company values, who's going to have the same vision as you do, because they're coming in and they will have an impact. So it's quite daunting, but it is very exciting. But yeah, like with angel investing, it's basically there isn't like a set rules of how it goes basically, as opposed to sort of VCs where there is a clearer process.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's clear. Yeah, I knew nothing of angel investing. It sounds very lovely, doesn't it? You say that. Just imagining someone flying down from the sky and dropping company on your money.
Such a lovely name, isn't it? I won't lie, the name is the first thing that attracted me to the
and I love that you talked a lot there about the values of CocoRio. And I know it's obviously you are a mother, it's a topic close to your heart. Can you tell me more about how you came up with the values? They come very naturally, and I love that you obviously want anyone that actually invests in your business that you seek fundraising from to align with them as well. So I'd love to hear more about how they were shaped.
Yeah, absolutely. So the big thing is understanding sort of our 3 pillars in terms of who we're serving. So the first thing is sort of the child development aspect, really drawing on the fact that early exposure to the arts is just great for kids' development. So somebody who, we don't need somebody who's researched it for years, but somebody who understands it and wants to know more about it, and who believes in that, because that's at the core of what we do, why we do what we do. And then there's the parent side, so busy parents, offering them a flexible solution. So obviously understanding that aspect, and then finally the creative industries. So both myself and my co-founder come from the creative industries. We know, I mean, every industry has its struggles, but we're very attuned with the struggles of the creative industries, and especially after the pandemic, they've been incredibly hard hit, more so than other industries. I mean, they've completely shut, and so somebody who really resonates with creatives, essentially. We've had people approach us with, well, how is it to work with creatives? Is it awful? Little, and there are sort of preconceived notions like that, and yes, it can be a very different process, but it's very important for us to, whoever comes on board, really understand both sides, essentially. So yeah, I think those are really important, and everything stems from those 3 sort of groups that we're impacting, basically.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And hopefully, obviously, that you remain true to that going forward. I'm sure you will, as your company flourishes, and you build your app and it goes worldwide, I'm sure, and everything, which we'll come on to later, I'm sure, about when we talk about your plans for the future. So if we think back a little bit, I know that CocoRio was founded during the pandemic, am I right? Just before, maybe right at the beginning?
Well, it launched as it is today, early sort of end of 2019, early 2020, so very much just before the pandemic hit.
Yes.
But the concept was sort of registered and initiated in 2017, so it'd been quite a while. But yeah, as it is today, very much sort of a few months before the pandemic, so very good timing.
Yes. Well, that was my next question, and one I've asked all my guests since I started this podcast back at the beginning of 2021, was to ask about coping mechanisms, or how you thrived during the pandemic, because I very much set this podcast up, one, to chat to people, have people to talk to whilst we were in lockdown, and share people's stories as well, and create that digital community of female support, women empowerment, essentially. That was one of my coping mechanisms. So I assume, but tell me if I'm wrong, that CocoRio and launching that and developing that into what it is today was one of yours. Did you have any others? How did you thrive or cope, however you would like to term it, during the pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, the first thing to say is that we've almost only operated during a pandemic. So it's been pretty difficult to sort of, for example, have sort of accurate projections and plan ahead, because obviously everything just kept changing and it's been a bit crazy. So I mean, on that regard, it's been pretty crazy in that sense, but just having an amazing team. Well, in the beginning of the pandemic, it was literally just me and my co-founder. There's now 8 of us, so we have expanded. But thank you. But just having my co-founder and just constantly talking, constantly brainstorming. I mean, in the beginning of sort of a startup, it's a lot of just throwing ideas and just retaining the ones that work, trying things out, putting in the bin the things that just aren't working, and so a lot of that. And just having somebody to sort of share this with was definitely crucial for me. And I don't think I really realized it at the time, but it definitely was a coping mechanism through sort of like these first few months where the whole world was like on standstill. The other thing is we started to really realize the impact we were having. So during the first lockdown, unfortunately, none of our services could go ahead because everything was closed. So we pivoted quickly into an online offering where we kind of adjusted to sort of homework help and sort of entertainment while parents were working, and kind of just made it work essentially. But from the from after the first lockdown onwards, childcare was able to continue, so we were able to go back to face-to-face, and our services were so needed because, I mean, parents were expected to work, to teach, and to parent at the same time. It's impossible, it's an impossible ask. And so most of our clients were, people in this situation who were just saying, do something with my kids, help them with the schoolwork. So yeah, that's where we came in, and we really saw the impact we were having. And I think that made us feel great as well, and made us, keep pushing. So yeah, definitely coping mechanism in many ways, the business. But also I was pregnant during the first lockdown. And so that was a bit crazy as well, loads of uncertainties. But I think the business kept me busy. So I didn't worry too much in that sense. But when I did have the baby, I was very aware that so many new mothers were really, really struggling with sort of isolation because of the pandemic, and had, motherhood is very difficult anyway, especially in those first few months. But the pandemic had a huge toll on new mothers. And I was really, really lucky to, again, have this team I was talking to on a daily basis, that I didn't feel that loneliness. I didn't feel it. And that's 100% down to sort of, the people I had around, and you know, I was talking to them constantly all day, every day. And so yeah, I suppose in a nutshell, basically what I'm saying is just chatting to people all the time was my coping mechanism, really.
No, of course, like, and that's, I think, what we all did, and what life
Yeah.
was like before. We always had informal relationships and chatted to people, and you recreated them as you could. As I said, this was one of my coping mechanisms, to recreate a digital community to inspire women. And it's interesting what you say, because what you're providing as well, which is something that I was probably naive to, not being a mother myself, is a mental wellness service. As you said, that being pregnant and having children during the pandemic is a very different experience to not, even though people that do not have children have had their own struggles. And it's coming up to International Women's Day this year. It's next month. And last year, I remember at my firm, Oakland, we had an afternoon tea, a virtual afternoon tea. It was very British. And talked about the impact of COVID on women particularly. And it really opened up my eyes to how much extra pressure women that have children, that have to, as you said, teach them, entertain them, work, do everything else as well. I just had to look after myself and make sure that I had access to my takeaway every now and again. And I'm being slightly facetious. Obviously, as I said, everybody did go through their own struggles, but I had no idea about that impact. I can't imagine struggling and coping with all of that. So yeah, the services, childcare services opening up again, and you being able to offer CocoRio to people at the kind of click of a button, I imagine was a lifesaver for many people.
Yeah, I mean, we really felt that way, and I suppose that's what, you know, helped us keep going and keep pushing, because you know, I can't say it was easy, and I can't say that from the get-go we thrived and everything was great. It wasn't, you know, it was difficult. You know, as much as families needed us, they were worried about having people come into their home, and then equally
Sure.
citizens were worried about going out and going into people's homes. So there was a lot of sort of like emotional management as well, and so it was very tricky, and lots of sort of navigating and understanding the rules as well. That was an exercise in itself.
Learning how to start a business and understanding COVID rules. What was more complicated?
Oh man, I'm not sure I can answer that. No, it was, you know, it wasn't easy. It wasn't, you know, I'd rather not have to do that again.
Hopefully.
But I'm really, really happy we did. I'm really pleased we did. And, you know, I suppose, yes, it does feel like we're coming out of it now, but, you know, it's still not back to normal. We're still in a pandemic. We're still navigating that. So we're just really looking forward to the day where it is normal life, and we can actually be like, in 3 months' time, this is what's going to happen, and it's actually going to happen. So that's really exciting to us. But on the plus side, all of our sort of like financial projections actually, you know, did as good or better than we expected. So on that front, we're really, really, really proud. But there's been so much sort of last minute changes and all of that, which is, yeah, it's mental.
Well, you're definitely prepared to be agile in the future. You've set yourself up for success there, and that's the way forward, apparently, as we all say. So, well, congratulations for smashing your projections, and I'm sure it will continue. And then, yes, I'm sure it will. And before the pandemic, so if you think all the way back then, pre-2020, you mentioned that you were a creative, or you are a creative. It was, I imagine it's part of you and is retained in your blood. But what did you do before you came up with the idea of CocoRio and obviously pursued it as a successful business? What was life like before?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, growing up, I've always been the singing child, like always popping up on stages here and there. Like that was very much my identity. I was a singer, and that was kind of how things were going to be. I lived in Tanzania at the time, as I mentioned, and you know, I lived in a small town. There was not many people, not many child singers. So I was very much, you know, I had a few friends I was singing with, which was wonderful. But it was, you know, very much sort of like the singers of the town kind of thing. And when
Famous, I think that's what they call it.
well, as far as saying that, but basically, you know, it was basically, I didn't see any other path for me. Singing with it, I didn't even sort of think about how I would make it in life as a singer. It was just like, that's just what I'm going to do, that's how it's going to be. So I finished high school. I applied to universities in the UK to study music, which I did. So I moved to the UK and studied music at the University of Kent, which was a really interesting experience, because when I moved at, well, I first had a crazy culture shock. Just, I mean, nobody had a similar background to mine, but also people had so much music experience, you know, like in a way that I couldn't even imagine. Because growing up in a small town, there wasn't that many opportunities. We generally made our own opportunities. We'd just be like, oh, let's just throw a concert here and there, you know. And these people had sort of gigged in pubs for like every weekend for the past like 5 years, had entered competitions, had done all sorts of things. And I was just like, wow. So I had like
imposter syndrome.
Okay. Yeah, definitely a huge imposter syndrome, a bit of a reality check as well. But I went through the degree, did very well, but realized I'm actually not sure that sort of performing is my, you know, my life, my
jam, if you want to throw in a joke.
Yeah, exactly. I just realized, you know, as much as I enjoyed it, first of all, I developed terrible stage fright, and I didn't enjoy performing anymore. Like I loved rehearsing, I loved singing, like for fun, but I just didn't enjoy the performing aspect anymore. It was, I would like get physically sick before it. So
surprising.
That wasn't great. Yeah, it wasn't.
You'd imagine you get more confident. I'm not a performer at all, but I would imagine you would get more confident the more you do it.
I did after, but I really did have a phase where I was just like, I'm not sure I actually like this. And it was very strange for me because, yeah, my whole life it had been music, music, music. That's what it's going to be, la, 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 no question about it. And yeah, so it was really, really strange for me when I started sort of questioning, like, is that actually what I want to do? And I started sort of envisioning other possibilities. I started looking at, you know, doing a master's in something slightly different, because I was just like, you know, if I graduate now, what the hell am I going to do? I have absolutely no idea.
Don't we all think that?
Yeah.
It gets to March of your final year.
Yeah, and I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to get my first gig. I was just like, I was completely lost. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to do a master's in arts and cultural management, because I figured, you know, it's still in the industry, it's still, you know, it's definitely what I'm passionate about, but it's kind of like the flip side. It's like, what about facilitating the arts rather than being the performer? And this was a wonderful idea. I absolutely loved doing my master's, and that's when I really realized, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to be facilitating art for people, and yeah, and I suppose that's kind of where CocoRio stems from. So yeah, I basically went straight into CocoRio from while I was studying. The way it happened was that basically I was babysitting alongside my studies just to get a bit of pocket money, and but I had a very musical approach with the families I was working with, and I had a sort of a little rota of a few families that I just babysat on a regular basis, and they actually encouraged me to sort of look a bit deeper into this concept and be like, you know, is there something like that out there? You know, could this become something real? Like, could it be more than just a little, you know, a few families here and there? And so that's when I started to sort of take it a bit more seriously, I'd say. Like I thought, okay, this is something I do enjoy, but I got a bunch of other jobs in between. I worked in fashion, I worked at an accelerator program, I worked for music school, I did all sorts of different things, which were really great experiences because they've definitely given me sort of the skills to now actually run a business. But it wasn't immediate where I was just like, okay, I'm going full into this business, I'm going to go in, make it work. No, it wasn't like that. The idea was kind of there, and I'd, you know, have a client here and there, and it was literally just me at the time. And yeah, so it kind of like grew gradually through the various experiences I had, essentially. But then I met my co-founder, Karina, and she was doing the same master's as me. And it turns out that she's got a background in drama, and she was also babysitting alongside her studies for the same reasons. And she also did kind of like me, incorporated her drama practice into the sessions with the children she had. And when we met, we're just like, this sounds like a match made in heaven. And again, you know, it wasn't immediate in that sense. Like, she had another job, she was working at a theater, and so it was kind of like, you know, just in there, the idea was there, and we're like, yeah, if we're gonna do it, we'll do it together, because, you know, we match each other's skills, la la la. And then one day, I think it was just like, from one day to the next, we were just like, this is serious, like, people like this, people need this. And that was it, basically. And we went full in. Well, I had a part-time job for a while, and she was actually placed on furlough during the pandemic, and so it was actually the perfect time for us to you know, work on it. And then we just dropped everything else and went full on. And yeah, so I think basically to answer your questions after a really long-winded answer, CocoRio has always kind of been there, like in the background, sort of following me around until we just decided that's it. Let's go for it. So it's definitely been part of my life for a very long time, and all these other experiences have been, you know, there and have helped me get to where I am today. But it's very much been CocoRio.
I love that story, and I also love, and this is something that I hear from a lot of the podcast guests. You mentioned that you babysat for a family regularly, and that they said you should go for it, your idea was valid, and sometimes you need that external validation, unfortunately, don't you? You need the push. And as you say, that tied in nicely with meeting your co-founder. It was fate that you both have similar interests and were looking to develop them into something. And then again, the third element of coronavirus, as sad as it is, your co-founder was put on furlough and gave her kind of the creative space to work on building that with you. So yeah, I love how all of those pieces of the puzzle fit together, and like it was always meant to be.
Yeah, it does feel like it. It does feel like it.
Yeah, good. And of course, we're wondering how you came up with the name.
Yes, so it used to be called Toddler Tunes. Very, very beginning, because I thought it sounded nice, but it was completely misleading, because first of all, we didn't just cater to toddlers, we catered from 6 months all the way to 15 years old. So that was definitely a problem. And then also tunes stemmed from the fact that I had a very musical approach. So I thought, okay, tunes works. But as soon as I met Karina, my co-founder, we sort of opened it up to the arts rather than just music. So it just didn't work anymore. So it was actually so difficult coming up with another name, because I really liked the sound of Toddler Tunes. I thought, that's great. You know,
it's catchy.
It's catchy. And so we were like, we had countless focus groups, we had all these like ideas, but none of them that we really liked, to be honest. Like, some of them were like, oh, I suppose we could do this, I suppose we could do that, but none of them felt right. And then we thought, okay, well, let's do something that incorporates both of us somehow. And so we played with the idea of Coco and Lala, so Coco for Karina and Lala for Lea. But then it turns out that's a lingerie company, so we're like, okay, well, we can't do that.
Not the path you're going down.
Yeah, and we were just like, oh, this is impossible. We were just not finding a name. And then my son was born, and we called him Rio. And suddenly it clicked, and then we thought Coco for Karina, and we've always liked that, and Rio, and we put the two together, and we're like, it really works. And then we sort of tested it on loads of people, and everyone loved it. They said it sounded exotic and sort of upbeat, and those were the feelings we wanted people to have from our company. So it stuck, CocoRio, and we couldn't be happier with the name.
Yeah, it sounds fun. That's exactly what I thought. Yeah, exactly what I thought. CocoRio, it sounds fun. Exactly. You don't know exactly what it does when you have the name, but that's why we have things like this for you to explain. So yeah, I love it. Thank you, Lea. So the next question hasn't really felt like I've been asking you questions, but I've just been having a chat, which is great. What advice would you give to someone wanting to pursue a similar journey to yours, i.e. pivoting from a creative career and starting their own business, or just starting their own business generally, or pursuing something they're passionate about? Any key pieces of advice that you would like to share?
Yes, I think the first thing is there is no perfect time.
Mhm.
There's always going to be something that's in the way or that's not quite right. So don't wait for the perfect time. It's not going to come. So if you're really passionate about something and you really want to do it, then do it. And I know it's so daunting and it's so scary and there's risk involved. But if you really do believe in it and you are, and you think it's going to make you happy, then really go for it. And then that's the other thing, really go for it. Don't half go for it. Like,
Yeah.
for a very long time I half went for it. So when family started saying like, oh, it's a great concept, look at having, more, I did a lot of talk like, oh yes, I've got this company, la la la. Yeah, no, I didn't. I had, like 5 clients and it was just me hopping from one client to the other. It wasn't, a company. It was nothing close to what we have now. And part of it was me being scared.
Mhm.
Also me not really knowing how to do more, how to, be more serious with it. And so that's why actually meeting my co-founder was the real sort of breaking point where we're just like, okay, we can do it
Yeah.
together and
And you've
actually
got the
take it.
support as well then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think, and that's sort of, I'd say my final piece of advice in that sense. It's, surround yourself with people who get you.
Yeah.
And not everybody wants a co-founder. Some people are quite happy being solo founders, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, honestly, bringing Karina on board was a complete game changer. Having somebody to celebrate the highs with is
Yeah.
incredible, but the lows, you're going to have so many lows, but it's so worth it. And being with someone else is just, it just helps. It really, really helps. And just in all sides, basically having a team, having someone you can talk to when you're, upset, when you're happy, it really, really helps. And if they're actually in that journey with you, they really get it. They really, really get
Yeah.
it. It's very difficult to, explain the life of an entrepreneur to somebody who isn't an entrepreneur. Not that they don't understand the words that are coming out of your mouth. It's just that it's a lifestyle, I suppose, in some sense. And I think, being able to share that with somebody who really gets it is really, really helpful.
Yes. Yeah, and again, like other previous guests have always said it. Yeah, it is like living a different life, and it is very hard to explain the highs and lows that you go through. There's so much at risk, and like you think about the actual practicalities of it, saying just go for it. You have to prepare yourself and know that you're financially viable enough to just go for it, and that can be very stressful. You know that you might not be getting money at the end of the month or as much money, etc. And that's what makes the world go round, right? And what people live for. So so very, very brave, and I'm so happy that you did meet your founder, your kindred spirit, that you
Me too.
that you struck up a team with and actually were able to go through it and experience that. So yeah, that's great advice. Thank you very much.
No worries.
So then we've talked about what you did before CocoRio, what you're up to now, the highs and lows. You touched on this right at the beginning, but do you just want to share a bit more about what's next? What are your plans for the future beyond the creation of the app that you mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we'd like to grow nationally. We'd like to be all over the UK, and then the ultimate goal is to have some hubs internationally as well. And
I mean,
sort of be
you're such an international person. You've lived in many different places.
hoping we will
It
get
seems
my
like a
career.
sensible thing to do.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think we'd like to be almost like the first thing that comes to mind when people think of creative childcare. We want CocoRio to ring, and we sort of want our brand name to sort of almost be a stamp of approval for quality.
Yep.
I think that's something we're definitely sort of looking to be.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I can't wait to see what happens with CocoRio. And maybe one day when I have children, I will be on your app using your services.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Lea. That was a really enjoyable conversation. And just got one last question for you, if you wouldn't mind. We've talked a lot about support networks throughout, be that people that you babysat for that encouraged you to start CocoRio, be it your co-founder, your family, when you went for your first fundraising rounds. And the last question I ask all of my guests on the HER.oes podcast is to nominate a hero, a HER.o, that has supported them, that they would like to share a bit of the story of. So have you got someone in mind that you would like to tell us a bit about?
Yeah, I actually have two people in mind. I don't know if that's okay.
You can do two. I've been flexible with other people. I always stop people talking at 3, but
Right. Well, so I mean, the first person is I couldn't leave here without saying Karina, my co-founder. I mean, she's incredible. She's been sort of at the heartbeat of the business in terms of driving it forward. So, you know, she's got a similar background to mine in the sense that she went from, you know, the drama background into sort of working in the arts and then sort of running her own business essentially. But not only that, she's an incredible woman. She's an advocate for women's health, really knowledgeable in that, and just really inspirational in that sense. So yes, definitely Karina Bordoli is her name. And my second person, and this is somebody who I don't really know personally that well, like we've talked quite a bit. But her name is Jess Salamanca, and she runs 3 businesses. Crazy, I know, but she shares really, really great tips for small business owners, which have been really helpful for me. And it's, you know, any tips from sort of like how to market your business for free to, you know, how to work on your work-life balance, like sort of really, really well-rounded tips, and it's been so helpful, and I can see that she's having a direct impact on so many other small businesses. So yeah, I think that's definitely somebody I'd mention.
Perfect. Jess Salamanca, I'll look her up.
Yeah,
I like a recommendation.
Yeah, she's the founder of Banana Scoops, which is healthy ice creams, and Moxie Club, which is a women's sort of mentoring group. Well, she could tell you a lot better than I can, but yeah, great.
Very interesting. I've got a nice tub of Ben and Jerry's to dig into after this. So healthy ice cream seems like that would be the more sensible option, but it probably isn't available in my freezer right now. What lovely recommendations. Thank you so much. And I also love that you mentioned that you don't know Jess personally, potentially or very well. And there's often heroes that we look up to as women for inspiration when we don't know them. I, in fact, heard about you way before we met. Obviously, we have a mutual connection, and more than one person suggested that I interview you, which wasn't the connection that we have. So yeah, it's easy to spread the word about inspirational women and look up to people before you really even meet them as well. So this is testament to that.
Oh, lovely. Well, thank you so much. It's been really lovely chatting with you, and yeah, I do hope someone gets inspired by by this story and hopefully starts their own business, or, you know, whatever it is that they want to do. You don't have to start a business, just take the leap if you want to do something.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've loved speaking to you, and I'm inspired, and I'm sure anyone that listens to will. Anyway, so we've got one tick in the box. So thank you so much, Lea.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.